Hey, I've got 16/6/15 rising time. This is a special public hearing to hear the appeal of a Mr. David Capps on Hook Road. Today is January 23rd, 2024. And I believe we had a legal notice, correct?
Yeah.
You read that, please?
Notice is hereby given that the Farmington Town Board will be conducting a public hearing at 6:15 PM on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024, in the main meeting room at the Farmington Town Hall, 1000 County Road 8, Farmington, New York, 14425, to hear an appeal from David Capps, 788 Hook Road, Farmington, New York, 14425, of the ruling by the Town Code Enforcement Officer as provided for within Section 24 Appeals of Chapter 126 entitled Individual On-Site Wastewater Treatment Systems of the Farmington Town Code. All parties in interest will be given an opportunity to be heard in respect to such application. Persons may appear in person or by agent or by Zoom, by order of the Town Board of the Town of Farmington.
All right, thank you, Michelle, for reading the legal notice. So let me just read some administrative information here. We do have 4 of the 5 town board members available, town staff, town attorney, and of course, the town clerk. This public hearing is in response to Mr. Capps' request dated December 5th to the town supervisor, myself, pursue the town board hearing in his appeal of the interpretation and decision that has been made by our town code enforcement officer to not issue a permit for an on-site wastewater treatment system that has been installed on property at 780 Hook Road for a pending single-family dwelling. Legal notice for this public hearing was published in the town official newspaper on Tuesday, January 16th, 2024, as noted by the town clerk. Public hearing is being conducted in accordance with provisions of Chapter 126, Article 7 of the Administrative Relief, which is entitled Administrative Relief of the Farmington Town Code. Within 30 days of this public hearing, the town board shall affirm, modify, or overrule the decision of the town code enforcement officer. Said decision shall be in writing and based upon the findings of the public hearing record. The decision will not extend to granting variances for the provisions of Chapter 126 of our code. Variances for the substantial requirements, i.e. septic tank sizes, setbacks, distances, and so on, remain under the jurisdiction of New York State Department of Health and New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. I've asked tonight for Mr. Capps to make his open testimony. I will allow approximately 5 minutes, which will then be followed by the town code officer for 5 minutes of comments. And then we'll refer back to Mr. Capps to provide any information, any additional information or rebuttal. And I asked the town board members to not ask questions until the first cycle of statements have been made by both individuals. So at this time, I'll open it up to Mr. Capps for comments. Welcome.
2009, I designed and built one of the largest homes in Farmington for my wife and 4 sons. We're active in the local church, community events, and scout community volunteer projects. For several years, we wanted to downsize by building a home on our property next to our present home. Our 10-acre property is agriculture with solar, electric, and a small farming operation. On September 8th, 22, a stop work order was issued stating I needed a site plan. Soon after that, the planning board approved a site plan that included engineered drawings for a septic system. This summer, site work was started and the septic system was installed, inspected, and approved by the engineer according to plans approved by the planning board. The system was backfilled according to instructions from the engineer and according to Farmington Town Code. The building department apparently observed site work underway and stated that no work of any kind was allowed because of the stop work order from September 8th of 22. So all work had to be stopped. When I attempted to pay the fee to remove the stop work order, I was told that it would only be removed by getting a building permit that I was already pursuing. Farmington Town Code states that stop work orders are to be specific. The stop work order from September 8th, 22 should not prevent all work on the property, especially after the conditions of its removal, namely approved site plan by the planning board, was completed. Shortly after this, the engineer submitted the septic approval to the building department, and I was told I would not be allowed to get a building permit until the septic system was dug up. Apparently, I was supposed to have filled out a septic system application and pay a fee. I am now being prevented from getting the septic system permit and paying the fee until I dig up the septic system. 2 septic systems installed on the same property a few years ago never had town inspections because the engineer who designs the system is the person who inspects and approves it according to Farmington Town Code. Farmington Town Code, under requirements for new on-site wastewater treatment systems, section 126-17, inspection certifications, section D says, require the design professional responsible for the design of the on-site wastewater treatment system to certify and inspect the system prior to backfill. This was done. Supervisor emailed me town code relating to wastewater treatment systems. First one was section 126-17A, which states installation of the on-site wastewater treatment system shall be under the direct supervision of the authority having jurisdiction. This states supervision, not inspection. The other 2 septic systems on the property were never inspected by the building department because this is the responsibility of the engineer designing the system, who also must certify the system to the building department. This was done. Also, section 126-17B states the applicant shall be prohibited from covering any component of the on-site wastewater treatment system without proper authorization. The engineer, the proper authority, authorized the system to be backfilled. Section 126-16A states the authority having jurisdiction shall not issue an on-site wastewater treatment system permit unless all pertinent site data has been submitted, verified, and certified as required by this chapter. All permit fees have been paid. Also, 126-16B3 can be denied if the applicant has failed to pay all necessary fees. I filled out the application, I provided pertinent site data, and I tried to pay the fee, but was told I had to dig up the septic system first. September 3rd, 2021 is when I originally sent new home plans to the building department. The illegal actions just described above are just a few of the many that have caused my family great harm. I request that the septic system be approved, the stop work order be removed, legal action against myself and my wife be stopped, and a non-biased process be set up to streamline permit approvals for long-term residents.
Thank you, Mr. Cap. I also want to notify everybody that our 5th town board member is online now. He's under the weather, but is observing the comments tonight. And Elroy, our code enforcement officer, your comments?
Yep. At the end of August 2023, I received a letter from Brent Rusick of Rusick Engineering that he certifies the replacement of an on-site water treatment system that was installed on Dave and Angela Cap's property on Hook Road. In this letter, Mr. Rusick states that the new building was not constructed at this time and the septic system was installed, and he strongly recommends that all components of the system be fenced off until construction of the new house is completed. Mr. Rusick also advised that the swing tide measurements to the building would need to be confirmed upon completion of the house and added to the record drawings. With this letter, there was drawings which was not correct, as what should have been submitted was as-built drawings of what was installed. With this information, the building department sent Mr. Capps a letter stating that he was in violation for installing a septic system without a building permit and with a work stop order on the property. Per town code 74.-4, building permits shall require for any work must conform with the state uniform code and state energy code, including but not limited to construction, enlargement, alteration, improvement, remodel, relocation, or demolition of any building or structure or any portion therefore and installed of a solid fuel burning heating apparatus, chimney or fuel in any dwelling unit. No person shall commence any work for which a building permit is required without first having obtained a building permit from the town. Also, per state code, section R 105.1, which requires persons or entities who construct, renovate, use, or occupy buildings and structures to apply for and obtain a building permit. The definition of a structure per state code is something is built or constructed, which a septic system would be constructed for use. We have been working with Mr. Capps and meeting with the requirements for a permit for installing a septic system since the end of August 2023. He has questioned all the information that has been requested and the code section for each one that applies, which the building department has provided him, all information needed. At this point, there is only one item that has not been addressed, which does not allow the town to issue a building permit for the septic. The town has requested the information of how the town will be able to inspect the system that has been installed and is now covered. The state code is clear per section R 105.3 that any person or entity performing work for which a building permit is required shall keep work accessible and disposed until work has been inspected and accepted by the authority having jurisdiction. Also, town code states per section 126-17, inspection certificates of an on-site water treatment system that the applicant shall be prohibited from covering any components of the on-site wastewater treatment without prior authorization. Again, the authority having jurisdiction per the state is the code officer appointed by the town. That authority cannot be given to an engineer or architect unless if the code officer allows for that per the state requirements. Without knowing how the inspection is going to be completed, the town cannot issue a building permit. These are my interpretations of town and state code.
Thank you. Captain, any
Well, first of all, he's taking a lot of this code from the section under buildings, building permit. There's no building on the property. There's no building where this site plan is approved. I got site plan approval from the planning board, and so I started out the site work. And the stop work order he's using to stop everything on the site, it was issued with saying that I didn't have a site plan. I went and got a site plan. And then he turned around and said, I didn't pay the fee or, so it applied to everything on the property. The Farmington Town Code clearly states stop work orders are for specific items. I fulfilled that item and he won't let me pay the fee to remove the stop work order. Everything with the septic system, it was done identical to the other septic systems, the two other systems on the site. They never came out to inspect the other systems. It was all up to the engineer. It was the engineer who always inspected the septic system. He designed it, he inspected it, he certified it. There was never any building inspector that inspected these septic systems. And it said right in the code, the authority having jurisdiction supervises it. He receives the paperwork. He never goes out and inspects it.
Mr. Capps, for the current system, did your engineer or whoever installed it take any pictures for the record?
I'm not sure if it's pictures or not. It was designed by an engineer, and that's what he does. He designs septic systems. It went before the planning board approved it, everyone looked at it, Dan was there. Everyone said, yep, this is the plan we're going with. Springtime came, I had an approved site plan, I started doing some site work. Installed the septic system exactly as planned. The engineer came out, inspected it, said, yep, everything looks great, you can backfill it.
Your engineer. Your engineer, none of our engineer firms that we hire or our staff. But you're
It
in.
was Brent Rosen.
Okay, thank you.
He worked on another system on the same project.
So Dan, I want to go to you on that subject because he has brought up one or two other systems that are on site that his engineer had done and inspected and claims that there never was any inspection by the town.
Yep, we've looked into that. Actually, I was the inspector at the time. I was the residential inspector for the town. Jim Morris was still the department head. He did apply for a permit. We did inspections, is what's in our records. And we issued the certificate of compliance when we received the as-built drawings from his engineer. So there's proof in the records that the town did do inspections.
Time frame was that?
I want to say 18. If I remember correctly. I don't have that in front of me at the moment.
So like, I'm just hearing that at least one of the previous two site inspections, we did get a permit from you. We did have our town staff inspect it.
I'd like to see evidence of that. I don't recall any town staff ever inspecting it. They just wanted the certification from the engineer.
I'm sure we have that paper trail, but we'll ask the department to provide it to the town board, and they can share it with you. Questions? Any other staff members or Dan? Any?
Well, I just want to address the stop work order. There was a couple items on the stop work order that had to be addressed before it could be released. One of them was to submit a site plan and have approval by the planning board. Mr. Capps did complete that. The next one was apply for building permits and pay for all permits before starting any work. He has not complied with that. And then the last one was to pay for the fees to release the work stop order, which is obviously the last one we do, because we won't release that until all the other requirements are
Well,
met.
I tried to pay the fee and it wouldn't be accepted. And it doesn't say anything about building permits on there. It says site plan.
Okay.
A site plan was accomplished.
We
It
will,
says it right on the stop work order.
So step number two,
step number two was step one was apply for a site plan. The second one was a building permit. The third one was pay for the fee.
so
And I will provide the stop work order to the board for their review of that.
to the best of your knowledge, your department never got the building permit paperwork.
For the septic, we did not receive any until we notified him that we were informed he had already installed a septic system. We do have an application for the house that he would like to build, but that's still under review pending additional information.
How long's that been there?
Augie took over that. We've had that 6-7 months now, trying to get all the required information.
And I heard you say that, so
That's not true at all. You know, that process has been totally stopped. I was told I couldn't get a building permit until I dug up the septic system. You know, so
Well, correct. We had stopped the review when we found out about the septic issue.
prior to you knowing of the septic issue, you were still asking for more information
Correct.
for the building?
For the home, yeah, for the home permit. And Augie was the inspector that was dealing with that, and there's been multiple correspondence back and forth requesting additional information.
Yeah, that started in May.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, we didn't hear that.
Sorry, yeah, the house permit submittal, that started May 8th, it looks like was the first email I received from Mr. Capps regarding that.
And then for the record, again, we heard about the septic system in,
End of August.
Just to be clear, we're not dealing anything with stop work.
not really. No. It's just a part of the whole trail.
Yeah, I got one thing to add. I mean, you are reviewing just the septic, my decision on the septic. Mr. Cap says I've denied it. I haven't. I've deemed it not complete because we're waiting on the information of how we can inspect the system that's been covered up.
Subjects.
You've told me I have to dig up the system.
I've never said that.
It's just right in the email. I can provide it in writing.
I've
You
said
said
that-
I have to dig up the septic system.
I said
And I
that we
told
need,
you, that to dig up the septic system, you basically destroy it.
I didn't respond.
my request was, and I have correspondence back and forth since August. I've asked over 10 times, how does the town inspect something that's been covered up? Has been the question that I need to have answered so that we can issue a building permit. And
Is
he,
it Department of Health or town code that says they should be left open until inspected?
town code does, and so does state code.
Well, and it was inspected. It was inspected by the engineer who designed it.
But he doesn't have authority in the town
He had authority before on the other systems.
because the town granted him that. It's a process.
So this time he chose not to grant him that.
It's after we do an inspection, we grant the ability for them to come
The
out.
other systems weren't inspected by the time. They were inspected by the engineer.
Okay. Please. Let's go back to the one you inspected.
Yep.
Which was septic system number 2.
Correct.
So you did have a paid permit.
Yes.
You weren't the department head then.
Nope.
You went out and inspected it. What did you find?
I found that it was installed correctly, which we then request record drawings from the engineer, who will come out and do all the measurements and then submit that to us so that we can close that system out.
When you were out there inspecting, were the trenches open so you could see the system?
I believe so. That's our normal standard procedure, so I don't know why it would be any other way.
So what I'm hearing, Mr. Cap, is that your engineer had the authority to continue and do the final record drawings. In that case, for septic system number 2, when we staff had been out and inspected, but was there on site. Which is different from this system.
Well, we have 3 systems there now. You know, number 2 was supposed to be the house, and they objected to that, so I agreed to put in a 3rd septic system, which is the one he's having problems with now. And the engineer came out, inspected it, verified it was put in exactly as specified, and told me I'd get back to him. So that's what I did.
There was never a permit for that to.
Nope.
Start it.
Right.
There was a permit for the other 2.
Correct.
This went before the planning board. It was right on the plans for the planning.
But the first 2 were.
Permits in order to start work. You didn't do that.
I overlooked the one permit for the, you know, it was approved by the planning board.
Yeah,
I was
the
overlooking
planning
it.
board approves a site. They don't approve your work. You still have to go through the code enforcement officer. Gotta get your ducks in a row and do your steps to do your work. It's like everybody else. That's my.
Somehow we require another town. That's.
You were on the zoning board for how many years? The planning board? 15. Just for the record. It is a public hearing. Anybody online or in the room want to make any comments? Mr. Cap, any final comments?
Well, I specified coding here, you know, you know, it says, in the Farmington Town Code, requirements for new on-site wastewater treatment systems, section 126-17. Inspection certifications, section D, requires the design professional responsible for the design of the on-site wastewater treatment system to certify and inspect the system prior to vacuum. You know, it's pretty clear. It's the design engineer, the guy who designs it, inspects it and certifies that everything's been done according to the design, right in the code.
Can I read that section from the code book? Because he's leaving out an important part. 126-17 inspections certificates, section D. The code enforcement officer shall have the right to require the design professional responsible for designing of the on-site water system to certify and inspect system prior to backfill. So the code is very clear that I have the right to ask for that. It doesn't say in here that the design professional can go out and do the inspection.
In this case, you didn't have a permit, pay a permit, you didn't know about it until after the fact.
So there would be no permissions that my office would give to allow it without those in place first.
Well, the system, the design was before the plan board. You know, everyone was there that, you know, Dan saw the design, he knew about the design. You know, it doesn't, you know, anyone else coming out wouldn't have any idea whether the system was right or not. Except the engineer who designed it.
So the planning board chair is in the audience tonight. Ed, when you had his project in front of you and you did site plan approval, what in your mind was in relation to that site plan approval for the septic system?
Well, in general, when we approve a site plan, we approve a site plan, but the next step for everything is to get a building permit from the code office. There's nothing that can be done based on a site plan without a building permit. And although I may not have specifically said that for this specific project, no project that I know of ever starts without a building permit. Whether it's a fence, a septic system, whether it's a house, whether it's a hotel, you have to have the building permit, which there's a whole bunch of things that go along with that. And if you attend the review committee meetings, there's a whole list of things that needs to be done before you get your building permit. It's been that way for the 27 years I've been involved in planning and zoning. That's all I know, but we may not specifically, usually I'll say, okay, your next step is to deal with the staff and get your building permit and all the rest. Usually I say that. I may not say it every time, but it is certainly implied by everything we've ever done before in the 27 years. So.
Would it be a general comment that the planning board, as far as a site plan for any project that involves a septic system or the placement of a storage shed on a piece of property, is that you're basically in general proving just the location?
Well, we're approving the location, and of course, the engineers look at the specs to make sure that everything is correct. But the next step is always the building permit piece, which then gives them everything else they need to know to move forward. We certainly do more than just location. The engineering firm looks at the actual specs and make sure that, you know, we haven't screwed something up and that everything flows the right way and all those types of things. But certainly, we never in a million years think that just by having approved a building or a site plan, that gives the applicant the permission to move forward with any building whatsoever, even clearing of land whatsoever, until they get all of the building permits and appropriate from the town staff. It's always been that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It goes for sheds, decks.
Sheds, decks, fences, you name it, everything that we do needs the building permit piece that goes along with everything. It's the way the town has operated for a quarter century. At least.
One time, any questions? Questions? Mr. Cap, anything less to say?
Well, a building permit is for a building. For a building structure. The town code 74-2 building permits, a building. Permits required, except as otherwise provided under section B of the section, building permit shall be required for any work which must conform to the building code. Including construction, enlargement, alteration, improvement. Removal, relocation, or demolition of any building or structure. You know, a building permit is for a building or a structure. There's no building or structure there. It's an open field. There's a separate permit for the septic system. I think it's called a wastewater treatment application. It's not part of a building. I was working on the building permit. As Augie said, we were going back and forth about details to put in for the building permit. And then it just came to an abrupt halt. Dan shut the whole thing down. So I couldn't get a building permit anymore. And so I was told, you can't get a building permit until you dig up the septic system.
Thank you.
And then there was the stop work order, and you know, there's nothing on the stop work order that says anything about a building.
Thank you. And Melissa?
Last comment, I mean, just to address the whole definition of structure, again, per state code, is something that is being built or constructed. I have reached out to my counterparts from the state to see if a septic system would be part of that definition, and they agree that that's being constructed in the ground, so that would be considered a structure. So that's my last comment.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any more comments from the board, and we've heard from Mr. Capps and the Code Enforcement Officer, Mr. Dan Delpori, and the Planning Board Chair. So at this time, we've got 6:47. I'm going to close the special hearing, and then we'll look at all the minutes and all the comments, and within 30 days, provide guidance to Mr. Cap and our Code Enforcement Officer. So I thank everybody for attending.